Observers on the Platinum Belt say mining giant Lonmin is still far from abiding by the mining charter and providing adequate housing for its employees as part of its social and labour plan. Better living conditions were part of the demands by Lonmin employees in 2012 when they embarked on a violent, unprotected strike which would claim 44 lives, 34 at the so-called Kopi on the 16th of August that year.
Living in squalid conditions without proper services like roads, water and electricity, 6 years since the massacre, it's still a reality for scores of mine workers on the Platinum Belt.
We are not happy because if you can go and check those conditions of houses, they are small. Some, they are not even a family house or whereby you can sit with your family. They've got small rooms, some they've got tracks.
However, residents have other concerns. The lack of unity among them is one thing they wish to do away with.
There are some infighting within us who are fighting over political issues, the union issues, and all these issues helping the Lonmin to get away with murder.
Corporate monitors say socio-economic conditions in the area contribute to the instability.
People feel unsafe because of unemployment. Poverty comes along with a lot of social problems that eventually lead to crime. If you look again at, let's say, the service delivery, nothing has been done on that part. Very few houses were built. Roads, water, sanitation, the situation is still the same, really.
Lonmin will commemorate the loss of its employees tomorrow and is expected to announce the work it has done so far to improve the living conditions of its employees. Olebogeng Khosilinswe, SABC News, Marikana.
Well, as you know, today marks the 6th anniversary of the worst police killing in post-apartheid South Africa, the Marikana Massacre. On this day, in 2012, 34 striking mine workers at Marikana Platinum Mine in Northwest Province were killed after they embarked on an unprotected strike demanding better wages and working conditions. The deaths followed a violent 10 days that left a total of 44 dead and 94 injured. Yesterday, the Institute of Security Studies released new chilling findings of the police killings in what is known as the Marikana Scene 2, where 57 police from 4 units fired 295 bullets at these mine workers. At Scene 2, it took 11 minutes to shoot and kill 17 miners, including a group taking cover among rocks and bushes. To talk more on the events, we are joined in studio by David Bruce. He's the author of the report, The Sound of Gunfire, the police shootings at Marikana Scene 2, the 16th of August, 2012. Good to have you in studio, David. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Good morning.
Help myself and the viewers just understand, we talk about 2 scenes that happen. So Scene 1 and then your work comes into Scene 2. When did Scene 2 begin?
Right, okay, so what a lot of people are familiar with was that in the days after Marikana on the 16th of August 2012, there was quite a bit of television footage. There was a group of strikers who had moved forward towards where the police were positioned. The reasons why they did so are still a matter of controversy. Some people think that they were trying to return to the informal settlement. Other people think that they intended to attack the police. But what the Marikana Commission accepted was that that at the point where they eventually ended up running towards the line of police officers, and that was likely to have been partly as a result of the fact that rubber bullets and stun grenades and so on were being fired from behind them. But eventually they ended up running towards this line of TRT members, and 17 of them were gunned down there.
That was very much so. That was the television footage that we all saw, and it was captured, and I mean, that stunned the nation.
That's
but
right.
There was another scene happening.
Yes. So for many people that is Marikana, but what happened after that was that the strikers who had survived that incident, and some had remained behind on the Kopi, then fled in a westerly direction. And there was an area which is known as Copy 3. It's largely a jumble of boulders and thick bush with some larger rocks. And a lot of them gathered there. And eventually 3 police units approached this area from different sides. One aspect about that is that there was no centralized command of these police. There was also no information communicated to the different police units about their colleagues approaching this area from the different sides. And anyway, so 15 minutes after the shooting at Scene 1, there was the beginning of another series of shootings at this location. And eventually another 17 strikers were killed there. So the death toll on the 16th comes from 17 at Scene 1 and 17 at Scene 2.
And this, as you say, happened over an 11-minute period of shooting, and
That's right.
And these people running for their lives desperately. Now, you've managed to get all of this evidence, and I know it's through photographs, it's through statements from the police, some of the surviving members, also ballistic and forensic evidence. It's taken quite a long time to compile this. Why only the release now?
Right, well, it's a project that's been undertaken since the release of the Marikana Commission report in 2015. So I was someone who was following the developments at the Commission quite closely, but one thing that struck me about the report was that it had discussed the events at Scene 1 in quite a lot of detail. But all that it really said in relation to Scene 2 was that the Commission wasn't satisfied with the account that had been provided by the SABC. Yeah. And so, but there was no real explanation or detailed account of what had happened at Marikana Scene 2. Yeah. And also what had emerged by that point was effectively different types of theories or explanations of what had happened. And so I was interested in trying to see to what degree there was evidence which would help to corroborate or, verify specific theories or demonstrate what type of explanation is most appropriate.
Yeah. So let's go back to Scene 2 now and just have a look at the evidence and what actually unfolded there. I read it in the introduction, but just as a reminder, the SABC members in 11 minutes fired 295 bullets to shoot and kill another 17 miners, including a group that actually were just hiding under rocks and bushes and were trying to save their lives. Now, my question here is, surely this was not that what has been told to us, the police trying to just maintain peace and control the miners. From what I'm hearing, this absolutely sounds like cold-blooded murder.
Right, well, there's a few points that one needs to understand about it. The one aspect of it is that there's 17 people killed, and some of them are killed in slightly different circumstances. So there's a group of 11 people who killed in a central area within this small copy area. And then there's effectively 3 other shootings. And it's possible to, for instance, in relation to the first shooting, there's some sense in which it might have resembled the shooting at Scene 1, in that the police who fired at the man who was killed there might have believed that they were on the point of being attacked by strikers, who were possibly then trying to flee from the area on the west side. And these were public order police who just arrived on that side literally seconds before a group of strikers ran out of this area on that side. But if we're talking about the group of people who were killed in the central area, one of the factors is clearly that police were shooting from... So once the shooting started at the area, police on the other side of the copy then started believing that they were being fired at by strikers from within the small copy area. And so what happens then is that police start firing into the area in response to what they believe are strikers firing at them. In assessing that kind of shooting, the one observation is, of course, that there were a large number of people gathered in the area, and police couldn't actually identify who was shooting at them. So for them to indiscriminately fire into the area, knowing that there were a large number of people gathered in the area, knowing that they were not going to be able to be sure who their bullets were going to hit, was, at minimum, extremely reckless.
Yeah. So, we obviously, it's difficult at that time to think what the police officers were going through, and psychologically, I mean, it's a tough thing also to put yourself in their shoes. However, having said that, after the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, it called for a full investigation to determine the criminal liability of police involved in the killing of Scene 2. So what further transpired was that IPID told Parliament in 2017 it had identified 72 police officers for prosecution for their role in the Marikana killings. Now, these cases, as you have pointed out to us after you released this study, are still awaiting any action by the NPA. So nothing has really happened with those that have been identified, the police officers.
That's right, yes. So there's also, I mean, there's been no clarification from the NPA about their response to the cases. Also, one of the shortcomings of the official response to these killings has been that there's been no action from within the SAPS. Yeah. So in terms of SAPS internal procedures, there should have been internal investigations into these shootings, particularly after the report of the Marikana Commission was released. And so up to this point, there's been nothing that the SAPS have done internally to try to even to understand what it was that happened there.
Having researched this, and I mean, you've now spent a long time looking into this. I mean, just from what you're saying, that not a single police officer or anybody has been really held accountable for this. How does it make you feel? Having found what you found out, having seen the footage, having looked at the photographs, spoken to the families of the victims, survivors, looking at these photographs of these men that died that day, and still no accountability. I mean, from your side, is there any will to want to make this close?
I mean, my work on this in some ways was my point of entry into this was that trying to understand what had happened. And part of it has been that in kind of engaging with the material, there's a degree to which it involves the need to have empathy both for the strikers who were placed in a position of being exposed to extreme violence, but also trying to understand what the police were going through. And so, my engagement with the material isn't from the point of view of hostility towards the police. But nevertheless, I do think that there is an obligation on the police themselves, the SAPS as an organization, particularly, and on the NPA insofar as there is evidence against specific police officers to take action against them.
David, as we wrap this up and go to news, because this is a continuation, it is our top story in the news, what's going to happen now with these findings and your study and this new report? What are you hoping now will happen?
Well, you see, as I say, in some ways, my concern is just to... Marikana holds quite a central position in the post-apartheid history of South Africa. And my concern was just that in many ways it still exists as in terms of a type of mythology about what happened. So in many ways, my hope is just to create greater awareness and understanding amongst people and amongst police officers about what happened there.
Yeah. David, thank you for talking to us here on the program. David Bruce is the author of the report, The Sound of Gunfire, the Police Shootings at Marikana Scene 2 on the 16th of August 2012. We'll continue with our coverage of this 6-year commemoration day of the Marikana Massacre. It's our top story in the news, and I'll hand you over to Sakina for more.